Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our 10-minute Bible lesson. That's not a very long time to have a Bible lesson, is it? So we really appreciate you tuning in. We're looking at a different series starting today. We're going to be looking from the book of Psalm. We're going to be selecting some passages of scriptures from different Psalms, different divisions of the Psalms, and we'll be discussing those. And today we're going to be beginning with the first Psalm, Psalm number 1. And we're going to be looking at Psalm 1, verses 1, 2, and 3. But let's start off by reading verse 1 and see what it says. So the psalmist said, "Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor stands in the path of sinners, nor sits in the seat of the scornful." So we can see that this psalm starts off right from the get-go, and it tells us how a person can be blessed. Now, you may be like me from time to time when I'm out shopping and doing different things. Maybe a retailer will say to me, "Have a blessed day." Have you ever had that happen to you? I have. I actually really like that to happen to me. I enjoy for them to say that to me. Because what I think that they're saying is "May God bless you today." And that makes me feel good. And so it makes me think, at least in my mind, I'm just assuming this, that they know the one who has the power to bless. And so when they say "have a blessed day," it certainly makes me feel good. Now, who doesn't want to have a blessed day? I don't know of anybody that doesn't. And so this psalm begins by telling us how we can do that. In fact, it starts off by listing three negative things. The first thing it starts off is talking about three negative things. Now, if you and I, if we were writing the Bible, which we're not, and we're glad we don't do that, but if we started off and tried to tell people "have a blessed day," we'd probably start off with three positive things. But listen, we're not the writer. We're not the inspired writers. So God wanted it to start off with three negative things. And it made me think about this, that can people be blessed by what they don't do? Now, I want you to think about that just a minute. Can we have a blessed life by things that we don't do? I would say that that's probably true. And so this verse tells us that. In fact, the three things that it says, walk not, stand not, and sit not. In fact, I thought that was, if you think about that a minute, it's kind of a digression. That is to say, you go from walking to standing to sitting. And you know what? Sin is like that. Sin doesn't stand still. It's not a constant thing. I think a lot of us think it is. If you could think of the life of David, when he committed adultery with Bathsheba, it didn't stop there, because it continued to get worse, and then he had her husband killed. And so sin digresses. In fact, it brings us lower and lower. So we can be blessed by the things that we don't do. So we'll be blessed if we refuse to take counsel from the ungodly. That's what this psalm says. And we'll be blessed if we refuse to stand where sinners stand. Now, where do sinners stand? What is it that sinners stand on? Well, maybe a better question would be, what is it that we're standing on? In other words, what are our core values that our life is built upon? What are we standing on those things? So number one, if we don't take counsel from the ungodly. Number two is if we refuse to stand where sinners stand. And then the third one, we'll be blessed by not sitting in the chair where the scornful sit. We don't want to sit in that chair. That's a bad chair. And I thought quite a bit about what it meant to be a scornful person. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, perhaps I've been that way. I don't want to be that way, but I thought that perhaps I am. What is it to be a scornful person? I believe that a scornful person scoffs at other people, and they have scorn for other people, the way they value other people and their opinion. And maybe you've known people that way, that they just kind of look down on other people, and they just scoff at other people. So we don't want to sit in that chair for sure. Now, there is an alternative, what we should do. Instead of not doing those things, there is something that we should do. This is a positive thing, and that's in verse 2. Let's read verse 2. So it says, "But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law he meditates day and night." So he don't do those three things, but he does do this thing. Who does that? The person that's blessed. So where should our counsel and advice on how to live come from? Well, the psalmist tells us it should come from the Lord, or it should come from his word, or from the law of the Lord. So let the instructions from the Bible teach us, and may we delight in what the Scripture says. In fact, the psalmist said in 37:4, he said, "Delight yourself also in the Lord." And that's great advice. And then he said, "And he shall give you the desires of your heart." Now, just think about that just a minute. If we delight in what is good and what is right, then God will see to it that those things come to us. So we looked at verse 1, verse 2. Let's look at verse 3. So verse 3 says this, "He shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water." What's the blessed man like? This is what he's like. He's like a tree planted by the rivers of water that brings forth its fruit in its season, whose leaf also shall not wither, and whatever he does shall prosper. Now, I have to ask this question. Who in the world doesn't want to have a prosperous life? I think all of us would like to have a prosperous life. Now, we may have a different opinion of what that means. Some of us might have a different ideal of what that means, but this verse happens to describe and tell us that life is like a tree that's planted by the water. And it describes that tree as a tree that bears fruit. Now, that's important to know. A prosperous life is a life that produces fruit. And that's what Jesus said. In John 15:8, he said, "By this my Father is glorified." How can we glorify God? Jesus tells us that you may bear much fruit, so you will be my disciples. So that's I think of this when I think of fruit, because I want to know, well, what does that mean? We're supposed to bear fruit. What does it mean? What does it look like? And I think of fruit as that God produces through us to the benefit of others. So God working through us to produce things that actually help and benefit other people. That would be what fruit is, not how much money you have, or not necessarily that you're the smartest person in the room, or you have the best position. No, not those things, but it's the person that is able to help and to benefit the people that come into their lives and across their path. That's a fruitful person. Now, let me say one other thing that I think is interesting about the tree, the representation of the tree being a prosperous life. The most important part of the tree, do you know what that is? It's the root system. Yeah. And here's something that I thought was really interesting, that the root system, you can't see it. It's unseen. The most important part of the tree is the root system, and it's the part that you can't see. And it's kind of like people. We see the outside of people, what they look like, but really the most important part of people is what's on the inside. And it's that part that you don't see. So I thought that was an interesting way to say it. You could look at it this way: the life of the believer is in their spiritual root system. And it's from that life that they draw the life and the nourishments and the nutrients from Christ. So I hope that this has been, insightful to you, encouraging to you. How can I be a blessed person? Now, another translation for the Hebrew word that we translate blessed is happy. But I prefer blessed because I think it's something that God does for us. And we all want to have a blessed life. And this psalm tells us how to do that. Well, I hope that you've enjoyed our little 10-minute Bible lesson today. And I hope you have a great week. Hey, listen, have a blessed week.